All right, well, welcome back. We're going to get started with Excel. So if you haven't already, please do log in. So you should be here. And it is our tradition. We are going to create a new Excel workbook for today's work. So you can go to create, you can click on Excel, new blank workbook, and you should get a new blank workbook like this. We're going to rename it Excel 05. And this is going to be a bakery sales report. All right, so when you get a chance, please open the link to the Excel workbook I sent you. I'm going to refresh mine. Here it comes. Okay, so first thing you'll notice is we have one named July 2021 sales report, and there's not much there. So I'm going to select it all the way down to the number of branches and G31. So this is going to be our framework. I'm going to copy it, switch over to my worksheet, and paste it in there. And I want to change the sheet name to July 2021 sales report. Then I'm going to create a new worksheet in the workbook. I'm going to go back to our source. And you'll have sales figures here. So the sales figures tab, I'm going to select from A1, and you'll see we've got 3 stacks here. So all the way down to B54. I'm going to copy, switch back over to my worksheet. And change the sheet name to match. It's going to be sales figures. And you'll notice I was able to change the sheet name before I paste it. So it's still on my clipboard, my virtual clipboard. And when I paste, here it all comes. I'm going to widen my 2 columns out so I can see the numbers. Then I'm going to close my source material here. And we're set. So here's the way this is going to work. I'm going to stretch out my first column, column A. We're going to move the data from our second tab into our first tab. Okay. We're also going to move the information over, but you'll notice the information in our sales figures is not really well organized. It's got sales, it's got labor costs, and it's got other costs, and it's reported by city. So what we want to do is move all this over. Okay. So there's a couple of ways to do it. And this only works, by the way, because we have them alphabetized. Just see there's Bend, Oregon, Eugene, all the way down to Three Sisters. And then the labor, same way. So they have to be in the same order. If we were missing one, it wouldn't work. This is not going to work. If they're always in the same order and there's always a figure next to them, this little mechanism is going to work. So I'm going to select the sales reported by city. Underneath it, where it says Bend, Oregon, A2, I'm going to select, drag down to A16 and over to B16, copy, and then switch to my July 2021 sales report. I'm going to go to B10. That's where I want everything to show up, and paste. And ta-da, it came over. So I'm going to widen column B so I can see some more, widen column C. And here we go. All right. So that brings our first set of data over. Now I want to bring the second set of data over. So I'm going to do the same thing, except this time when I go to sales figures, I'm not going to select the city. I'm going to leave these alone because I already have them listed and I know these are in the correct order. So I'm just going to select from B21 to B35, copy. Under ingredients, paste. Okay, see how that works? They all lined up and everything's correct. For labor, just to be different, I'm going to widen this up first. I'm going to move the data over, but in these two columns, when I copied and pasted it, it's a static paste, meaning like here's 48,000 for Bend, Oregon. If I go back to sales figures here, go up to Bend, Oregon up here and say, oh no, we made a mistake. It was only 20,000. You'll see I also have to update it here, 20,000. It did not update automatically because once you copy and paste, they aren't linked together. So I'm going to undo that. So here's the other option. So I've got costs as reported by city. I'll go back to my sales report. For labor, I'm going to use an equal sign. And then, like we did yesterday, I'm going to link to my sales figure worksheet. So I click on sales figures. I'm going to go to cell B40, click it, and you should see at the top here, my formula bar, I've got a formula that tells the computer where to find the information I want displayed there. So it's equal sign, and you'll see in apostrophe sales figures, exclamation point B40. So that means to the computer, display what's ever in the tab sales figures in cell B40. Let's see if it works. I hit enter, it bounces me back, and sure enough, $634. I can just double check it. Yep, it's right. This time, I can use the fill handle and pull it down. And I always like to check the last number, see if it came right. Came over correctly, and sure enough, 3,432, there it is. So in this case now, under labor, it's linked to the sales figures worksheet. So if on, for example, Bend, Oregon, there again now, no, this is wrong, their costs were $20,000. And I change that, watch what happens to my report. You see here, it's now $20,000. So that's the two ways of bringing them over. Usually depends on your needs of whether you do that link or not. Sometimes if somebody else is going to be updating these figures, then you do want them linked. So that way you're not pasting and pasting and pasting. On the other hand, if it's something that you're just going to use once and it's basically throwaway, I mean, like at this point, I might be tempted just to delete the sales figures tab, then copy and paste works fine. When I click on the cells though, you'll see the difference. On cell D10 under ingredients, it's a number, and under label E10, it has the sales figures. All right, see how that works? All right, in cell B9, we're going to put a label, and we're going to give it the branch city. I want to make rows A and 9 bold, again, so they stand out. And for costs, our sales, ingredients, and labor are all, our ingredients and labor are both costs. Our sales are not. Our sales are income, right? So here's where we make money, and here's where we lose money, or the money it takes us to make money. So I want to center this headline, or this heading over here, excuse me, between those two columns. So to do that, we've got the good old merge and center. There it is. I click it. After I selected D and E, so D8 and E8, merge and center, and there it goes. I also, in row 9, want to center those labels horizontally. So I'm going to use the center text align. Okay. While we're here, remember yesterday when we were printing, I said the computer automatically turns off the grid lines. So you can add them, or what we're going to do is we're going to be selective about them. I'm going to go from branch city, that's B9, all the way down to G31. So that's going to be all my data, all my calculations. And I want these to have a drawn line. So it's a border. And if you look at the top here, you've got borders. So I use my pick list here, and you'll see the options I have. So first of all, there's no borders. That's the way it is now. Even though I see the grid lines, they're not going to be displayed. You can have bottom borders, which means each cell is underlined. Top border means each cell has one on top, but not on the bottom. You can do just the left, just the right. And then you can also do all borders. That's what we're going to do. And you'll see a couple options here. You can do an outside border. You want to do a thick outside border, you can. And that would just surround the whole grid. Let me just show you that. See how we get a dark line around it? So that's a way to make this table stand out better. But I'm going to go back up here. First, I have to select. It's only going to do what I've selected here. And I'm going to use all borders. Okay. Then I'm going to click on costs and do the same thing. So it gives me a little extra line here for costs to say that these two are our costs. You can also do these at your leisure. If you'd like to change the color, remember I said yesterday you can change any color you want. You can make the border orange. It's kind of hard to see. You can also make the border thicker. So there's border style. You can use a dotted line. You can use a double line. I'm going to use a double heavy line. And then what happens is it kind of starts getting hard to read. So we're just going to do the regular straight outline here. Oops. Okay. All right. So just a couple cosmetic things. Let's go up to Good Bakery. I want this one merged and centered across my column. So I'm going to go from column or cell A1 to G1. I'm going to use the merge and center. And then I want to make it a 36-point font. Monthly sales report is in column A. I'm going to stretch out column A. So it's a little offset like this. I'm going to make this bold. And now that we can do these borders, I'm going to use the underline. I call it underline. It's bottom border. So there's a line now underneath the bottom. And I think I left my orange double lines on. Darn it. Switch to automatic. Yeah, here we go. So you'll notice monthly sales report. If I do a Control U, I get an underline. And if you can see it, see the report ends, and then there's a space between the report and the end of the cell. If I use the bottom border, it'll go all the way across, and it's underlined. So just keep that in mind when you see it. Sometimes we've been in situations where we're trying to erase that bottom border, and you're going, what am I doing? I got it right. I'm sure it's right here. No border, no border. And what it is, it could be that column, the column is so close that it's not a bottom border, it's an underline. So turn off the underline, and then you don't see it. Okay, so there are kind of options depending, again, on your needs here. We'll go ahead and use the bottom borders like that. I'm going to widen up column F and column G so we can start putting in our total costs and our net profit. All right, so to do our total costs, that's a simple addition. It's the ingredients plus labor. So I'm going to put an equal sign. Start off with D10 plus E10. And there we go. There's the total costs. I'm going to fill handle these down. And then I had a one of my orange borders that I was playing around with, so I just wiped it out by using the fill or the paste. I clicked on a cell that was good, clicked the format paintbrush, clicked on my other cell, and now it's fixed. Okay, I want to group my costs together so when somebody looks at this, they know immediately what we're doing just by a quick visual scan. So I'm going to select the label ingredients, which is a D9, go over to F9 and drag down here to F24. And what I want to do is I want to give these a light gray background. So if you remember, we do have the dumping paint can, which is our fill color. So I'm just going to make a light gray one here. What's this one called? White background 1, darker 5%. So it's not a lot. I don't want to go too dark. I just want it to be slightly offset. And the reason I like to do that is because the ingredients and labor are both of a category and they make up our total costs. So that way they're kind of visually linked. Net profit is pretty easy. It's equals sales minus total costs. So at C10 minus F10, and I can fill handle it down. There we go. So you'll notice here, I just did a simple subtraction. If we wanted to, there's another way to write this formula, and it works just the same. I'm going to wipe everything out here. So it's equal sign C10, but I can also do the subtraction individually of ingredients and costs by doing this. C10 minus D10 minus E10. Ta-da. And then if I fill handle that down, you'll see the numbers don't change, it's just the formula. What that would allow me to do is if I did not have the total cost or I wanted to hide it, I'm going to shrink down column F till it's almost gone. And there we go. So I don't even need that column because I did the math here all at once. Okay, I'm going to undo that. I think I told you yesterday, my preference is to have it so that you can look at the worksheet and tell what I was doing when I generated it and how I did the math. So like I said, these are all grayed out together. So they look like they belong together. Oh, I see, it's the total of these two. And then the net profit is a subtraction. All right. So I did notice that some of my numbers, when I click on like D15 here, when I pasted them over, it came over as 11-point font instead of the 12. Whereas if I click on, here's one, F10, that's a 12-point font. So that's all right, no worries. I'm gonna select from B8 all the way down again, so I cover everything, to G31, and I'm just gonna reset it to 12. So the ones that were already 12 will turn to 12, and the ones that were 11 will turn to 12, he says, and then it doesn't happen. Yeah, there it goes. Okay, so it's being stubborn. So what I do is I set it to something 18, and then set it to 12, and that resets it all. Yeah, there we go. Now they should all be 12s. Good. So sometimes it's supposed to work where you just set it all, but sometimes you have to make it wrong to make it right. So there we go. So now it's 12 points. A little easier to read. All right. So for our totals, total sales, you can use the auto sum. It's going to lasso around the stack of numbers right above my cell C26, and that's correct. So I hit enter. And now I fill handle it across, and we get totals for ingredients, totals for labor, totals for our total cost, and then totals of our net profit. So $500,000, not bad for a month. You'll see here at the bottom of net profit, the sum is the stack of numbers above it. Well, here's one of those funny things about math. If I've done this right, I'm going to wipe out that formula, that sum, where it says net profits in G26, and I'm going to use my auto sum again. This time it lassos the cells to my left, and if I've done it right, they should both be the same number. And they're not, right? Yeah, because I said 500,000. Oh, I'm sorry, I did it again. It doubled our costs. So I can't do it as a sum. I have to do it the same way we did this formula here. So C24 minus F24, copy, paste. There's the 516. So I could have fill handled this down. The problem with fill handling is then I get one here at G25, and I didn't want that. So there's two ways you can do this cell. And for me, I probably just would have left it sum, but I like to do that just to double check myself, because sometimes if there's an error, it will show up by that number. And then see, I just noticed, oh yeah, right. I have a subtotal of costs here, and I had to take that out of my formula if I want to double check it. So either way works. Okay, so this net profit here is all added up below. The next thing we want to do is we want to use 3 other formulas now. So to do this, we are going to start with average. So we want to know, if we look at all these, what is our average sale for all of our branches? All right. Now, 2 ways to do this one. You could just type it in if you remember the formatting, or start with an equal sign, hit the function, and then you'll see there's average right under sum. So average doesn't have its own button on the tools ribbon, but that's okay. We can do this. So it says average, left parenthesis, and then I can manually select the cells I want to average. So that's C10 to C24, and hit enter. And it tells us our average sales for the month is $37,164.87. Okay, not too bad. So this is again how average works. And when I select it, you'll see it shows me which cells it's averaging. You definitely don't want to include this total. If you included the total in the average, it would double your average. So luckily, when it lassoed, it figured it out. But this is one thing you always double check. Make sure it's not coming down here. So make sure it's got the right numbers. All right, let's find out our average ingredients costs. All we have to do is drag it to the right one. And there's our average ingredients cost. Drag it to the right again, average labor cost, and our average total cost. So, again, it's averaging these up. I could also have just added these 2 together here and gotten the same number. So an equal sign, D28 plus E28. Ta-da. So the way math works, the sum of 2 averages is the same as the average of the column above it. I'm going to undo and put it back to average. So you'll see up here, it's set to average. That's good. And then once again, here in net profit, I could take my formula here, C23 minus F23, copy and paste it. And there's the result. Or because we just want to practice with the average formula, I could drag that over and use the fill handle. And there's the average, and they're the same number. So again, it doesn't matter how you get there, it gets you to the same spot. And even if you leave it the other way and these numbers change, it will update correctly. Let's see how that works. Okay. So we've got average sales. The next thing we want to do is we want to know who of these branches had the largest. So what we're going to use is a different formula instead of average or sum. So I click on the formula, and what we're looking for is max. Max is maximum. So the maximum number in the list. I'm going to click OK, and then again, select my list. Hit enter. And it says, oops, the maximum sales is the 83,000. So Olympia, Washington. Okay, can I see anything to prove it wrong? No. Now I did have to scroll up and find the cell that had that figure in it and then look to the left. We're going to use another formula later on called VLOOKUP, which is actually going to pull the one next to our figure over and tell us, so we don't have to do any work. We just have to look at our formulas and what they do. So as you can imagine, I can fill handle this across. And there we go. So who had the largest ingredients cost? Well, let's see, 1654. Oh, that was Larkspur 2. You know, who had the largest labor cost? That was 4,364. You would think it would be Olympia, but nope, it was Portland. And then total cost, who had the largest? Seattle, Washington 2. So it just kind of, you know, depends. So the bottom line here, like the literal bottom line that we have so far, who had the best net profit? 78,000. And if you look here, Olympia. So it was Olympia with the biggest net profit. So that works. Here's another way to do that. If you can remember that max is the formula that you're using, what I sometimes do is, you'll see here for my totals, it said equal sign sum in the left parenthesis C10 to C25. I'll just copy that in the formula bar. So when I click on largest sales, I click in my formula bar, paste it. Now it's sum, I don't want sum, I just change it to max. Max is easy to remember. And there it goes, and you get the same results. So it just depends on how you prefer to do it. I like the formula bar, and I use it a lot, especially in complicated formulas. But simple formulas like these, sometimes I like the shortcuts better. All right, now we want to know who had the smallest figures. So we're going to use a new formula. I want to go to my formula bar. And this one's going to be min for minimum, M-I-N. That's the smallest. So, okay, I have to lasso my set of numbers. Hit enter. The smallest monthly sales was 2,552. That was Larkspur 1. I'll call them up and tell them they're all fired. They didn't have enough sales. We're going to fill handle that across. And now you can see who had that smallest ingredients cost. The 123, Seattle, Washington 1. Who had the smallest labor costs? At 224, Spokane, Washington. You can see the smallest total cost is Seattle 1. See, they're not always the same because, you know, the way the numbers work, one can have a lot of labor costs and smaller ingredient costs for some reason. You know, maybe they're importing their goods and they're closer to the shipping containers, and so it comes in cheaper. And then who had the smallest net profit? 874, that was Larkspur 1. Now I wouldn't say that one did come in the same as the sales. And then once again, you can do with min, just, you know, like I did with the max and the sum. Now we're at number of branches, and I want to widen up column B because my label here is too big. Now what I wanted to do is count how many figures are here, and that will tell me the number of branches. And that's in column B10. And here's the way this works. So again, I click on my little function button up here, and you'll see the list. There's count. Click OK. And I'm going to have it count from Bend, Oregon, that's B10, to B24. Hit enter, and look what I get. I get 0. So let's change that using my function button again, count, and count the numbers. So that's C10 to C24, hit enter, and there's 15. So count only works when you're working with figures. There is another formula to determine whether cells have any entry whatsoever. In other words, either a number or a label. But when you're using count, you have to use the figures. The downside of that is it could be, let's say Bend, Oregon, for example, didn't have any sales. And if it doesn't lasso Bend, Oregon, and there's no figure here, it's completely empty, it won't count it. Or if somebody hit the space bar, see, I hit the space bar and hit enter. See, it won't count that. Even though it's an active branch, it doesn't have any sales. So you just have to remember what you're trying to do here. Okay, I want to change these labels. They're not sales. I mean, the first column is, so I'm going to take out average. Are the sales for average, sales for largest, then smallest. So that makes it correct all the way across. There are times where you want to know what these numbers are without necessarily putting them into your worksheet. So there's a quick way to do that. It's also something I like to use to double check my formulas. So the first thing I want to do is I want to double check, is my total here correct? Is my average correct? Is my largest, smallest, and number correct? So let's find out. I'm going to select C10 down to C24. So I've got the range that I've been using, right? Down here in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see I've got some numbers. Whenever you group numbers together, these will pop up and tell you the sum of your lassoed numbers or your selected numbers. So my sum should be 557, 473, and sure enough, I look over here and it's correct. And then you'll see it does a count, it does the average, and if I want, I do have a little drop down arrow here. And you can see more. So the numerical count is 15, max, min, sum, and it gives you everything. See how that works? So you can also do that with, let's say I just wanted to know, how is Larkspur doing in their sales and their statistics? I can select those two, use my pick list here. Their average between those two is 12,987.50. So you can see, you know, Larkspur 1 is pretty small and Larkspur 2 did pretty well. So average together, you know, they're 12,000. Of the ones I selected, there's two. The smallest is 2,500, largest is 23,000, and the sum 25,975. So that works too. So you can do that for any groups of numbers. I could do it for these numbers here, although adding them like that wouldn't make much sense. So usually it's in something like this. And like I said, it's a good way to double check yourself. Did I get my sum correct? Oh yeah, I did. So the formula is working right because I can see it down here. It's funny, all of our teachers went to a Microsoft training and we have to do continuous training to keep our skills up, and because everything changes all the time on us. So we went to the Microsoft official training and there were 3 people and one guy was at the front. He said, "Hey, you guys want to see something really funny? I'll bet you never knew this was here. Watch this." And he did this, he showed this, and he said, "Every time you do this, down here at the bottom, it tells you. I'll bet you never knew that." And I wanted to raise my hand and said, "Well, I knew it because it's in our textbook." And it is a good tool to have. So, see, even the people from Microsoft learn new stuff after a while. And that has been there since before the 2000 version, in fact, because I remember it being in 2000. I think it was 97 when they put it in. So there you go. They slip things in. See, that's the problem. Is they slip all this stuff in. They don't really make a big fuss about it. And they should. They should tell everybody, "Hey, guess what? We have this new tool." So here we go. So that's our reports for our bakery for July. Any questions on how we did those? So we're starting to use some new formulas. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to click off in a blank cell here, just in case. You'll see there's a lot of them. We've been using sum. Another one is sum if, like only, you can tell the computer, only add up sales figures that are greater than $10,000. In other words, exclude anybody 10,000 and less. And same with count if we were trying to get a count, count if the sale is greater than, say, $20,000. And you could then say, here's how many branches made more than $20,000 in sales. So these are the commonly used ones. As I mentioned when we started, if you go to this pick list and go to all, you'll see there's hundreds of them. So luckily, you don't need to know how to use them all. Like, I have never used Gauss. But if you were doing statistics, you might use it all the time. And you say, oh, I use Gauss all the time, but I've never used Max. That's new. So everybody uses what they know. All right, so with that, it's 6:55. It's break time. We'll come back at 7:05, and we're going to work some more on this worksheet with our sales figures. Okay, we're back. All right, we're going to come to the top here. I'm going to do a little bit more formatting. And what I want to do is I want to take this monthly sales report and I want to duplicate it so we have a July, August, September. So it's going to end up being a quarterly report. So here's how we're going to do it. First, I'm going to click on the Good Bakery. And while I'm here, I'm going to use my ribbon to expand it. And I'm going to use the styles. Now, remember, we did styles on Microsoft Word, and that was for the text. Styles here is going to be the text and the cell itself. So you'll see here's a whole bunch of different styles. I only selected my title, but you could select the whole table if you wanted. I'm going to select for my title 40%, light yellow 40%, accent 4. Now it did change my font, so I'm going to correct that by going back to 26. Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't 26. It was 36. So this is another way you can do the backgrounds. You can do it manually over here with our little dumping paint can, or you can use the pre-made styles here. So I'm going to select monthly sales report going across. And I'm going to go back to the dumping paint can. I'm going to make that a light pink. See the difference? And down here, for our totals and averages, I'm going to pick a style. And this one, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to use a light green. That's 20% accent 6. Now, again, I adjusted my fonts smaller. I want them at 12 points. So I'm just going to go back and adjust that part. And here we go. And it kind of gives it more visual interest. Plus, you can point things out. You know, obviously, these numbers down here are pretty important because they have a color. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to duplicate everything I've made here for the next couple of months. So as you recall, I'm going to select on the tab down the bottom. I'm going to right click. And I'm going to duplicate. Then I'm going to right click again and duplicate again. And then I told you it was only 3 months, but actually I want to do 1 month, one more. So I'm going to duplicate one more time. So the way this works is I want from the left to the right to show July, August, September. So what I'm going to do is I can either change the spelling here on the July 21 sales report, left parenthesis 4, right parenthesis. I can change that, or I'm just going to drag my July 2021 sales report all the way over to the left. It doesn't matter because the contents are exactly the same. The computer duplicates them exactly. Good. All right, so there's July. I'm going to double click on the tab that says parentheses 4. And I'm going to make this August and remove that 4. Okay. I'm going to go to July, do the same thing. This is going to be September. I'll take out the 3. Good. All right. And then for our final tab here, I'm going to change this one to quarterly total. There's 4 quarters in a year, 3 months in a quarter. This is going to be the tally. Okay. So click OK. And then we're set on the tabs. So now we do have minor adjustments. What I do though, I want my reports to look almost exactly the same. So that way, when you get used to reading one report, if you can read it and figure out what it means, then in July, you can do the same for August, same for September, etc. But I do need to change my date here. So you'll see in cell A5, I'm going to change the 7 to an 8. Okay. If you wanted to, you could type out the word, August 2021, if you like that. And the way the formatting is set up, the computer will automatically adjust it to this formatting. If you didn't want it this way, you can change it here under dates. Remember how to do that. I'm just going to leave it that way for now. That's personal preference. But I'm going to go to September and change that one to 9. And then I'm going to leave quarterly total sales report alone for now. But now if I look, I got July, August, September. The good news is we don't have to do all that formatting and inserting the formulas again because they're all working right. The bad news is when people are looking at this, if they're not paying attention, they could be thinking they're seeing September and they're really in August. So they just kind of have to pay attention. You can always tell at the bottom because the current tab is underlined. All right, so now we have 1, 2, 3. Now, obviously, it's very unlikely that our sales and our costs are going to be exactly the same for each month. But for the purposes of this exercise, we'll just say they are. So now we're going to go over here to the quarterly sales report. Okay, this one, I want to wipe out the date, and we're going to say quarterly totals. So what I want here is I want the totals for the quarters in each of these cells. So here's how we can do it. First of all, I am going to go into cell C10 down to E24. And I'm going to hit the delete key. Remember, delete key removes entries. It doesn't actually delete the cells. So here I want to see the sales for Bend, Oregon for all quarters. I'm going to put that in there. You'll notice though at the bottom, I'm getting an error, a division by 0 error, because remember the average divides by the total number of entries in those cells. And right now that's 0. But again, that's okay. It has to be wrong before it's right. To make this figure show up here in cell C10, I'm going to put an equal sign. And I'm going to click on my July 2021 sales report and click on C10 here. So you'll see in my formula bar, it says July 2021 sales report, C10. I'm not done with it yet though, because I want to add August. So I'm going to plus. Then I'm going to click on August and click on C10 and it added it on. I'm going to click plus again and click September and click on C10. And there it is. And you'll see the formula started already as well, our net profits. And down here, now we've got some totals. So see how that works? When I click on there, it looks like a long old thing, but when you read it, it's just the names of the tabs. and the cell. So here's the good news. For Eugene, Oregon, I don't have to go do that all again. I can just fill handle it straight down this way, and it fills them in for me. All right. So this is called 3D formulas, meaning, we've been using 2 dimensions, the columns and the rows, but this way we're going outside of them to go into other tabs. So for ingredients, we want to do the same thing. Just to practice it, I'm going to put an equal sign. And I could start at July, or you could start at September. It doesn't matter where you start. There's September plus, because this is addition, it can go in any order. So D10 plus D10 plus July. D10. And then enter. And it worked. So see up here, it's the same formula, just they're in reverse order. Because it's addition, I can do that. And it came up with my total. So we can fill handle this down. And again, it starts filling in our other formulas now that we have some data here. And if I click on the bottom one, D24, you can see that the formula did it. So I did not use an absolute, and so it advanced the cells down 1 row each time. Everybody got the hang of it? Really? Because now I'm going to show you a shortcut. And the problem with the shortcut is it's great, but then you might forget how to do it. Actually, here's what you do. You keep this workbook in your account, and at any point you say, how do we do those 3D formulas again? Just go back to it, take a quick click on it, and it should give you a refresher. So you know how we've been fill handling down, and that works great. You can also fill handle to the right. So for labor, I'm going to click my little fill handle and pull to the right. And there it is. It went back to September, E10, August, E10, and July, E10. And sure enough, if I click on those, that's what I wanted, E10. So you can fill handle down, but you can also fill handle to the right. In fact, for all these down below, I'm going to do just that. Instead of fill handling down, I'm going to pull them to the right. And it's the same effect as pulling them down. So like I've said before, you can do the same thing in Excel a couple different ways. In this case, it gets you the exact same result. Nobody could tell you how it got that way. The only way we can do this, though, is if these reports have every number and name in the exact same order. Okay. If here in August, for some reason, I decided I want labor to show up first and then ingredients, it's fine. Actually, the numbers over here won't change at all. But in this quarterly sales report, these will be wrong. It'll look like 1/3 of these labor costs are into ingredients and 1/3 of the ingredients are into labor, and what a mess. So it only works if you keep them exactly the same. So they do have to be the same there. As you can see, I've got some numbers below that are too big. You see the pound signs. So I'm going to open these up by opening column C. And I'm also going to do column D, column E, column F, and then column G, my totals. Just so the numbers are spread out a little bit more. I think it makes it easier to read. So see how the formulas work? Now the good news is down below here, we can still see our figures here for average, largest, smallest. They still work. Now, if you take a look here, let's start at sum. You'll see our sum is not a 3D formula. Could it be? Sure. So our total is 1,672,000. Let's see what happens if we do it as a 3D formula. So equal sign. I'm going to go to the sum in July plus August plus September. Oops, wrong one. What am I doing? Oh, boy, that would have been wrong. I did. So I can look at my formula and something's fishy. So the numbers didn't come out right. That's because I wasn't paying attention to my clicking. And I can see here, I did a D, and I know that's supposed to be C. So I can delete it, start over, or you can edit these at any point in time. And I'm just going to type in the letter C. And there's my 1.6 million. So it's exactly the same. It would have to be. You know, if I got my numbers right here and my formula's right, it has to be the same. So you can leave it at sum, or you can or you can do a 3D formula here. It won't matter. They should be always exactly the same thing. It's just kind of personal preference. If you want to practice it, that's one way to practice. Let's do it over and over again. They say if you do something 7 times, you're less likely to forget it. So because of the way math works, it's the same number, whether I do a sum of the rows above or a 3D formula. Any questions on that? I can leave this and it can be mix and match, and it wouldn't make any difference whatsoever. The other thing I can do is I can copy this cell C26, and go over here to E26 and paste. And you'll see it's the exact same amount. And then F and G are still sums. So see how that works? I guess you could do this if you wanted to confuse anybody who tried to duplicate what you did. You know, do that, and they'll wonder, well, why is that? There must be a reason. We wouldn't just do that. There must be something there. And they'll spend all day trying to figure out why you would do some of these one way and the others the other way. Especially, I guess, if you did like all the costs one way and the sales and net profit another way. They'd be thinking, okay, there's something I'm missing. There's got to be there. You know, there's got to be a reason. So any questions on that? Okay, let's take a look at our sales figures. So here we have all of our sales. And remember, if we use that 3D formula to extract that information, we don't want to change those. So that's the downside of using a 3D formula, is it is reliant on the source material. So, you know, meaning, let's say in July, I took out the sales, it's going to affect the quarterly sales figure. So even if I did it by accident. There is a way that we can do it where it's locked in. In other words, it won't change if anybody changes the numbers. So we're going to create on a quarterly sales, total sales report. I'm going to right click, and I am going to duplicate again. I'm going to change the name to quarterly sales as oops, I don't want uppercase, as of 2/1. I'm just going to say quarterly sales 2/1, and you have to use a dash. You can't use a slash. 22. Okay. So I can use a dash. I can't use a slash. That's what it was warning me about. And here. Okay, I'm going to slide this one over to the right, all the way past sales figures, in fact, just so we can see the difference. So I'm in that tab now. I'm going to come up here to B8 and come down here to G31. and I am going to delete. So I lost all my formulas, but that's okay. Now I'm going to click on the quarterly sales report with 3D formulas, and I'm also going to select B8 down to G31. And I'm going to use the Control C to copy. Got my marching ants. Click on my quarterly sales as of 2/1. I'm going to click on cell B8, and I'm going to do a Control Shift V. So it's a paste special. The other way I can do it is, let me undo. I can click up here on the tool paste. I get a little drop down list, and that'll remind me that I can paste values. When you do a Control Shift V, that's essentially what you're doing. So I'm pasting values. In the desktop version, you can do more than that. You can paste formatting, do all kinds of things. Okay, it looks the same, right? And even my green color stayed the same. There is a difference though, and it's subtle, and you can only see it when you click on something like sales. Look at our sales and look in the formula bar. It's a number. So if I did this cell C10 in our quarterly sales report, watch what happens. It's my July plus August plus September. This one is just the numbers. So whatever numbers were in the quarterly sales report are pasted here, not the formulas. So here's why you'd want to do that. If this is like this was back in July 2021, so these numbers should be pretty solid, right? Shouldn't be many changes. You want to make sure that nobody's just browsing around and just clicking around and accidentally delete something. And look, we even got a red out of it. So what'll happen is if I go over here to quarterly sales report, this one got updated because they're linked. Over here, quarterly sales as of 2/1/22 are not, it was not updated because it's not linked. So you can do this when you kind of want to lock in place. You want it for everyday use. I'm going to undo to be able to update. So let's say we're doing this for this quarter. So we have a January, February, which is going to be blank, blank numbers here, and March should be blank. Excuse me. So somebody's going to fill it in as you go. All right, fair enough. Then you can also have your quarterly sales report, etc. But once it's done and you know those figures aren't going to change, you can basically make a copy of them. It's kind of like, let's say I had up this quarterly sales report and I took a picture with my phone. If the numbers change, my phone's not going to change, right? Because they're not linked. That's kind of what this is, except this actually has figures in here. So again, if you need to adjust them or make other changes to them, you can do that as well. Does that make sense? Now, that's also true down below where I have my totals, my average, my number of branches, and smallest and largest. Those are now the figures, not the formulas. So you kind of have to look at this formula bar to see that. Otherwise, they look exactly the same. So does that make sense? So you can do that. And then if, the other way to do this is save this as a copy. And then if somebody ever does make a change to the live one that you're sharing, you can always go back to this one to see how it was before. Because that does happen. In this case, it's probably not too likely for the bakery, but there are times where you're sharing workbooks and somebody makes a change and they'll call you up and say, I don't know what happened, but it's not working. You go, oh no. So having one to go back to take a look at, you can even split your screen and do them side by side to figure out, what got changed. And, sometimes it's just even, let's see back here in quarterly sales report, like I had, it could be a D instead of a C. So having that static one gives you a reference. The other thing you can do, if you have that in there and you're going to be sharing this, you don't want anybody to be working with your static one, is you can hide it, like we saw before. So that way it's hidden, and then they can see the quarterly, but they can't see the quarterly active one with the 3D formulas, but they can't see the other tab you made unless they unhide. So I right click, unhide, and here it comes back. So you can right click and hide it. And if I were going to send this out, I'd probably be tempted to do that for a couple of reasons. You can see just using the standard layout, the word July is being cut off here because there's too many tabs. Their names are too long. Plus, I do have a quarterly sales report and quarterly sales as of 2/1/22. And if I sent this out, I am sure somebody would call me up and say, Dan, what's the difference between these two? What's this for? And then I have to give a long explanation. If I hide it, because it's just for my reference, then I don't have to talk about it. So it makes it a little bit more efficient. All right, if no questions on that, that's a good thing. Let's go to sales figures. Okay, so here we have the sales as reported by city. I'm going to copy this, Control C, and then just come over here to G1. So I selected A1 to B16, and I'm going to paste it. But first, I'm going to right click. So there's a couple of things we can do. When you are moving data around, you can do sorts on them. So I'm just going to do a quick paste. I'm not going to do a paste special. Oops. What I'm going to do is I want to resort them. But here's the thing, is if you are sorting them, I don't want to sort my originals, because remember I used the 3D formula, and if I start messing around with these in order, it's going to change my other tabs. So I made a copy of it. The other thing I can do is I'm going to click down here in G18. I'm going to right click, and you'll see I have a whole bunch of paste options now. So the first one is just a regular paste. The second one is paste values, and that's the one we did with the Control-Shift-V, okay? You'll see there's formulas. If I wanted only the formulas to come across instead of the numbers, I could do that. And then there's transpose, and then you can also do the formatting. If you want to paste the formatting, you can, and it will just paste the formatting in the cells without anything in there. And then if you wanted to link them, you could do that as well. We're going to work on transpose. So I'm going to click on transpose. And I'm going to widen up my columns now because they're too skinny. But you'll see what it did. It copied and pasted the same information, but instead of doing it vertically now it's horizontally. So I can widen these up one at a time, or I can select them all and just widen them as a group. So the way I did that is I had already done column H manually. So I selected columns I through, R. And then double clicked in between and it made them wider. So I have a few more to go. I didn't get them all. So I'm going to do it again. Select from S over to V, go between any columns at the top here where I get my double black arrows, and double click. And it widens it to the longest entry, which in this case, I know there's nothing underneath them. So it's going to be the name of the city. I'm going to take this label here, I'm going to cut it, I'm going to paste it above just so I can see it all without having to widen anymore. Okay. So now you'll see the figures are exactly the same as the ones above. So Bend, Oregon's 49,000, Bend, Oregon, 49,000. But this time, instead of pasting it vertically, it does it across horizontally. So that can be useful if you want the same information to show in a different way. And you can actually do this with all the formulas. And what you could do is end up, our max, our total, and our average could be way over here on this side. So, here's where we could put sum, average, max, all that. But in this case, you might want to do them this way. Like that. So I'm not going to do the formulas, but just so you know, you can do that. It's perfectly legitimate. So the other thing we can do is I'm going to bring this total back down where we had it. And I'm going to select all the way across horizontally. Now over to V19 down to V20. Copy again. Click on G22, and then I'm going to right click, go to my paste options, and the transpose is the one with the two little blue arrows. So it's basically saying from horizontal to vertical or vertical to horizontal, transpose again. And you'll see I get my column back. So you can go back and forth and make copies horizontally or vertically. It won't matter. Now, one question is, could I have taken the sales report by city, copied it, and replaced this vertical one with a horizontal one? Sure, I could. No problem. It's just my formulas, when I linked it to it, would now be off. It's not smart enough to update all those. So if you do that, kind of plan ahead. If you're going to use the formula or use the figures in another formula and another page, then you want to be careful about changing. Okay. But other than that, like I said, the data is still there. And if I wanted to from scratch, so let's say I wanted all of these horizontally, I could copy them, paste them in as a transposed set of figures, and then do my links in the horizontal. And that works too. That's legitimate. So it's just one of those things that once you do it, though, once they're linked, try not to replace them. All right, so now I do have a couple of copies of my sales reported by city. We do have other ways of finding out who made the most sales and who made the smallest sales. When we started, we did it with max and min. I'm going to select from Bend, Oregon, that's G2 down to H16. So it's all my data on the sales. And I'm going to go up to the data tab here and get the data ribbon. So now we've got the data tools. You'll see we have some short tools and some more advanced tools here for sort ascending and sort descending and custom sort. So if I click sort descending, it goes from the largest to the smallest. So I'm going to click that. The sort descending and sort ascending always looks at the first column you selected, which happens to be my city names. So alphabetically, it did it descending. See, Three Sisters is the last in the alphabet that I've used, the T, and B is the beginning. I can change that to sort ascending, and it goes back. Because I've selected both the name and the number, the sales number that goes along with it, they are linked together in this sort. So I'm going to switch back to descending, so you can see that. And you'll see my 48,000 went there, right? So that's how we started. Let's say I say, okay, I want these in alphabetical order, and I just click and select the city names. It'll work. It's going to give me a warning, and you may see this sometimes. It says, hey, we found some data next to your selection, and you're going to change these. Are you sure you want to do this? If I do, I can say, yes, expand and sort. Oops, I really messed up. Or I can say, all right, Excel, just sort it. Okay, so now Three Sisters has that 48,000 and Bend only has the 21,000. So that's why you want to make sure you grab the right cells. But like you saw, if it looks like that there's something close to it, like in this case, see how the numbers are so close to the name, it will give you a warning. Okay, I believe though, I'm going to undo. I'm going to select my numbers. I'm going to cut them. I'm going to paste them over to I. As I recall, now if I try to sort descending, yeah, see, it doesn't even bother telling me, hey, warning. So if you do that, you left a little space here for just visual purposes, then don't rely on that warning. So I'm going to undo and bring it back. There we go. See how that works? All right, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select the labors reported by city. I'm not going to select the names because I know these are now in the right order. So I'm going to select from B21 down to B35. I'm going to copy. And then on cell I2, I'm going to paste. Okay. I'm going to move my sales reported by city over to column H. I'll widen it up just a bit. And then I'm going to copy labors reported by city. Put that in that column I. And I got one more. Costs as reported by city. So I'm going to select that, copy. And this is going to be starting at J2, paste, and it'll grow out from there. And I'm going to grab the title. And in J1, I'm going to paste it. And you can see my titles up here are all bunched together. No problem. I'll go back to home. So my home ribbon. And I'm going to use our famous text wrap or wrap text. And then just to make it neat, I'll center them. Okay. So here I have a mini version of my table from the sales reports. So here's the other thing I can do on the filters. Let's go back to the data. I'm going to go to the data tab here. I'm going to select from cell G1 down to J16. And I'm going to use a custom sort. So you see there's a box up here. It says my data has headers. If I didn't select the titles, then I turn that off. If I did, I click on it. And that way it won't sort my titles. So it's asking me, what do I want to sort by? Well, I want to see the sales. So I'm going to click on column H because I can see here, sales is reported by city. So what it did, incorporated my titles across the top. And based on the cell values, now you'll see there's coloring. You can also sort by coloring if you've done that. We didn't. And you can sort ascending or sort descending. Ascending is from little up to the biggest, and descending is the opposite. Ta-da! It moved the names, the sales as reported by city, the labor, and the costs all together. And you'll see it went from the smallest all the way up to the largest. All right, so that tells me who had the lowest sales and then who had the highest sales. So this is kind of like another version of our max and min. It's just a way of sorting them. Okay, I'm going to do that again. This time on a custom sort. and I'm going to do it by labor. This time, I'm going to sort descending. So now this shows the highest labor costs to the smallest labor costs. Okay, just to round things out, I can also do it costs as reported by city, same way, custom sort, costs, and I'll do it ascending. So you'll see all the data moves together. And that's good. You want that because you don't want San Francisco's numbers being mixed up with Bend, Oregon's numbers. So I just widened my name column because I mentioned San Francisco was cut off a bit. So see how that works? If you want that to be available later, you can always do the sorts. Just make sure you grab all of the data to go along with your headings. But there's another thing you can do. And we have another tool. Oops, I went too far. Actually, it wouldn't matter because it's blank. And now I didn't do enough. That one would matter. Okay, so I selected G1 down to J16. So the other thing we can do is add the filters. So I click on filter, and now I see these little itty bitty drop down triangles. What those do is give the ability to filter by the numbers by clicking on the arrow, and you can see sort smallest to largest. If I click on that, everything changes. And then you can tell which one's been activated because it has these little arrows. Okay. I go by labor by city, and I want to see largest to smallest. So that's descending. And I don't know, one of the things about Excel, I don't know why they did this. They used sort ascending and sort descending in the ribbon, but here they say smallest to largest and largest to smallest. But you can tell they're the same because they have the same icon. But I would have used them both just to be consistent, because now I think, well, how is this different than what we did before? So I click that. Now this one's activated and the other one went back to a triangle. Okay. And they can do the same thing, costs by city. You can also do more advanced number filters if you wanted to sort it just by like the ones that are above average. See what it did? It hit all the ones that, it took the average, it didn't tell us the average, but then it filtered it to show just the ones that are above that number. And you can see that right there. Okay. Then what it also did, it took those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 figures and it sorted them by this one over here from largest to the smallest. And sure enough, you could see it. So you have 2 filters going at one time. So you can do that. When you want to remove it, you can see up here, there's clear. There's a filter with a funnel with an X on it. Click clear, and everything should come back. So this table now has filters built into it, so you can immediately shuffle them around. And that might be a handy addition to your formulas that give you the max and the min. And then I can also go back here, A to Z. And there's where we started. So it's critical of selecting the right cells when you start. That's really important. But once you get that down, you can add these filters. It's really handy. If you want to turn them off, you can always click on the filter again, and they're gone. But if you're ever opening somebody else's worksheet they worked on and you see those little triangles, I know what they are. They're filters that you can resort things. And assuming they've done it right, it should work just fine. We have a couple minutes. Let me show you if you do it wrong. So let's say I only selected down to San Bernardino here, added my filters. Now I tell it, do it smallest to largest. It's only the cells that I selected. If I change it, largest to smallest, So I'm going to switch it back here. And I'll leave those on. Any questions about filters? I'm going to switch this A to Z so it looks like all of our others. All right. Well, with that, we are done for the evening. We'll see you tomorrow at 6, and we'll even get in deeper in our filters and our sorts and our formulas.